What's up, y'all? It's Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show on Social Suplex Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show. Listener discretion is advised at all times.
Once again for downloading and listening to another episode of the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, part of the Social Suplex Podcast Network. My name is Clive and I am joined by Ricky. Good evenings to you, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I'm tired, recording slightly later tonight, but all for a good cause. All for a good cause.
It is. It's one of the best causes it is, because we've got the Commander-in-Chief in with us tonight, Mr. Jeremy Donovan from Keepin' It Strong Style. How are you, sir?
Doing good, man. Glad to be back with my boys here in Scotland, Ricky and Clive, ready for another fun show for you guys, man.
Yep, some transatlantic banter, I think, if that is such a term. We are hoping to at some point get young boy Joshua Smith on. He's running a bit late tonight, so if he does come on, even if he doesn't, we're going to do the New Japan, adding the New Japan wrestlers to the 64 wrestler bracketology that we've got lined up. And from the messages that we were getting back and forth from Joshua last night, he's got a few things to say. So hopefully he doesn't keep us up too long late in the night over here. But first of all, we're going to have a wee chat about Power Struggle, Ricky. You've got a few questions. I mean, obviously, when it comes to Power Struggle, if you want a full rundown, you want to go over to Keepin' It Strong Style, featuring our man here himself, Mr. Donovan. The ace of New Japan podcasts, the ace of podcasts in general. But Ricky's got some specific questions about it.
So, just so put in a bit of context here. Every Tuesday morning, once I open up the laptop and sit down and start doing work, the first thing I do is I put headphones in and I'll listen to Kiss, Keepin' It Strong Style. I didn't do that this morning because I didn't want to basically have their thoughts in my head when I'm asking these kind of questions. So I'll listen to that tomorrow. And I asked a question for the show last night. So just a couple of questions we've got for Jeremy, obviously. Is first one would be that I just want to dive straight into Jay White and Ibushi.
Alright.
It's kind of like I'm going to ask the question I asked you last night, but it's kind of like a two-parter. Were you surprised that they put the briefcase on Jay White? And do you think it's a possibility that Jay White drops the briefcase between now and Wrestle Kingdom? I think for the first question, the reason I ask that is because when the match was announced, I think we said it on this podcast, and I was like, I can't wait for that match. But the impression that I was getting, it was almost like, remember the pay-per-view between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania? There would always be a WWE title match, and like it could be like a really good match on paper, but we all knew, well, the champion's not losing the title here, but it's still going to be a good match. That's the kind of impression that I was getting. Just like, from my little knowledge that I've got of New Japan, I was just like, like, it's going to be good, but no way does Ibushi win the G1 and then lose the briefcase, because is that the first time that's happened?
Yeah, so it's the first time since they've been doing the briefcase. I believe it's like 16, something like that. The first time the briefcase winner has lost the briefcase on the road to Wrestle Kingdom. So as far as being surprised, I was very surprised that Jay ended up getting the briefcase. I thought that they were going to switch the U.S. briefcase and that Tanahashi was going to beat Kenta, and that way you get your briefcase switched, but it's not the main briefcase. But yeah, surprised Kenta retained, and then Jay getting the briefcase was very surprising, especially now we kind of see what the layout is for Wrestle Kingdom. And so, I know you asked, do I see Jay White losing the briefcase between now and Wrestle Kingdom? And I don't think so. So they had the press conference after Power Struggle kind of announcing the matches. So at the press conference, Naito challenged Ibushi for night 1 since Jay only wants to wrestle on night 2 and face the champion. So Naito had decided to challenge Ibushi. So on night 1, it will be Naito and Ibushi for the titles, and then the winner will face Jay White on January 5th. Just looking at the schedule, so up next we have a mix of World Tag League and Super Juniors. So, Jay and Ibushi, a lot of those guys are not on those tours. And so we're not going to see those guys again until the end of December for the Road to Tokyo Dome tour. And they're probably not going to do any briefcase switches on the Road to Tokyo Dome. And with those matches kind of being announced, I think it's kind of set with Jay with the briefcase. But it's kind of weird because it felt like this whole thing with Kota Ibushi was going to be a redemption story, a redemption arc. Last year he lost both matches at the Dome on January 4th and 5th. He lost to Okada on night 1, then lost to Jay White on night 2. And then, he's kind of been on a losing streak in the beginning of the year. They come back from COVID. He's teaming with Tanahashi. The whole feud with tag titles and Dangerous Tekkers. And then G1 happens. Has an awesome G1. Wins the G1. Gets to the G1 finals 3 years in a row. Back-to-back winner. You think, all right, they're setting him up for a redemption arc. He's going to win, both nights at the Dome. He's going to leave Tokyo Dome with both titles. But now the way it's kind of set up, it kind of makes us feel like he's not going to get that redemption because night 1 he's facing Naito, and you would think, well, that's kind of the big money match. Those guys haven't faced each other in about a year or so, and so that's kind of a fresher matchup, and kind of that would be the great way to end the weekend with Ibushi beating Naito, holding both titles. But now he's facing Naito on night 1, and so it's kind of a hard picturing him beating Naito and then going into facing Jay, which this would be the 4th time they do Jay and Ibushi. And typically those Dome main events are pretty protected. Usually a year or 2 years, you don't see a matchup that would happen at the Dome.
So do you not think then it could be a possibility of Ibushi beating Naito on night 1 and then defeating Jay White on night 2, and that would kind of contribute to the quote unquote the redemption storyline that, I won the G1 after all the struggles, and Jay White took that moment away from me, but I finally got upper hand on you and I came out on top because I've ended night 2 as the double champ. Do you think that's a possibility?
I think they could do that. It just feels weird. I mean, I know that they're not drawing full capacity. They're going to be drawing 20,000 fans each night, but it's still a decent amount of people you have to draw. And just the fact that the 4th time in a row, a Jay Ibushi match, that they would put that in the 2nd night of the Dome and expect it to draw, it's not normal. I mean, they could definitely do it. It just seems a little bit weird, especially Jay White and Naito. That match hasn't happened in a while, and that could be kind of a more of a protected main event. And so you would think, oh, well, Naito gets past Ibushi, and then you do Naito Jay White, and because Jay White's really been calling out Naito a lot and kind of seems to be brushing off Ibushi, but that could just all be a setup for Ibushi to get in there and, like you mentioned, kind of get that comeuppance on Jay, since Jay did cheat to beat him to get the briefcase.
I would personally want to see Jay White and Naito, because that was still we're in November now and it's still my match of the year from their January match. Jay White and Naito win.
Mm-hmm. So the last kind of question I'll have about Jay White is, so if we go with the assumption that obviously Naito will retain on night 1, do we see Jay White holding both titles at the end of night 2, do you think?
I mean, it's a possibility. If you look at previous Wrestle Kingdoms, we never really had a heel kind of end the night, and we never really ended with heat, with like a heel leaving with the championships. I mean, last year we did end with Kenta attacking Naito after the Okada match, and we got the heat that way, but Naito still left with the belt. And you look back at previous Wrestle Kingdoms, it's usually, Tanahashi or Okada are the ones kind of ending the night, big kind of feel-good moments, the top ace, babyface stars winning, walking off the title. So, I mean, Gato has done a lot of different stuff this year, kind of breaking a lot of trends. I know COVID's kind of messed up a lot of his plans. So, I mean, it will be just completely different thing for him to do, having, top heel and Jay White leaving the Dome with both titles. I mean, the safe money, the safe bet would be to say that Naito or Ibushi would leave that night with both titles.
See, with how bizarre some of the booking has been this year, like Evil coming out of nowhere to win the titles and Jay White winning the briefcase, do you think it is at all possible that a triple threat will happen on the night too?
I mean, they really don't do a ton of triple threats in New Japan, and I just feel like, especially at the biggest show of the year, I don't think they would end up like convoluting, doing a draw or something that would lead into a triple threat. I think they're just going to go kind of a straight, clean matches, have whoever wins, and then winner will face Jay White. But then the thing is, then what happens to the loser, though? Because then one of those guys are going to be left out in the cold. It's like if Ibushi loses, okay, what does he do on night 2? If Naito loses, what does he do on night 2? And there's not, much direction there.
Aye.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was Kenta retaining the briefcase. Now, obviously, like when it comes to WWE, you've got like the full year, they say, to cash in the Money in the Bank. How do they get the title off Moxley? Because obviously, like, unless this whole COVID situation thing changes, do we see him at Wrestle Kingdom potentially taking on Kenta, or do you think they might need to strip him of the title? Like,
yes.
How?
I think that they're probably hopeful that they can try to get Moxley into Japan. So they've been getting a lot of their foreigners into Japan the last month or so for a lot of these tours, and so, I mean, there is a possibility that Mox could make it in time for the quarantine. I know in December, AEW, I know like Christmas week, they normally kind of give those guys off, and so, those last 2 weeks of December, you can do some pre-tape promos and stuff like that for Dynamite, and Mox could go over to Japan in quarantine and potentially, be ready for Tokyo Dome. I think one of the bigger issues is the fact that Mox is still the AEW World Champion, and typically would not want to have your World Champion going to another promotion and losing a secondary title to a secondary kind of guy. That kind of hurts the credibility of your champion. So I don't know how Tony Khan feels about that, and if he'd be willing to send Mox over there to lose, or if Mox went over there and still win because he's a champion, then you're still stuck with Mox with the title. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to do yet. It really just depends, if he's going to be able to get over or not, because it looks like they're not going to allow Mox to defend in the U.S., but it might get to a point where they might just have to strip him of the title and just, give it to Kenta, and then maybe down the line, once travel opens up, you can do the match.
Because I'm just trying to look to see when the next AEW pay-per-view would be.
That would be
is that
February,
Revolution?
Yeah, February 27th.
After Wrestle Kingdom, and that's obviously, I'm assuming that's when Omega and Moxley will take place. The last thing I want to talk about Power Struggle was the main event. Just your thoughts on that match and whether you kind of felt that 33 minutes felt like a long time.
Yeah, that main event was a slog, especially it was the fourth time seeing Evil and Naito this year in a pretty, short time span, in a matter of months. And yeah, it was just a typical formula of, ref bumps, interference, just an overabundance of cheating. You had Ibushi, Jay White, Yujiro, Dick Togo, Sonata. You had all these run-ins, and yeah, I've not been a big fan of the Evil Naito matches. I mean, the best part of the match was probably the last closing minutes there. I totally was rolling my eyes when Naito hit the two Destinos and they pulled the referee out of the ring, and it just was going on and on. Especially like you mentioned, 33 minutes. If these matches are 15 minutes, 10 minutes. And they do some quick interference and then have a good closing stretch, it'd be a lot better. But, you could lose the first 10 minutes of the match and it has really no impact on the story at all. And you would still, you'd end up having a better matchup.
no, I would agree. And it kind of that question about like talking about the length of the match. There was probably 1 or 2 matches on Full Gear I felt the same way about. Which, if you want, we can transition over to that.
Yep.
In fact, final question about Power Struggle, because going into it, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, there's like 4 matches on this card that I was like, oh, you like kind of rubbing your hands. I was like really looking forward to watching them. Just your overall thoughts, did it live up to like your expectations, or was it a bit of was it a dampener, or was it up and down?
So overall, I thought it was a good card. It didn't quite reach, the heights it probably could have reached. I really enjoyed Shingo Suzuki. Those guys just had another war, but their match wasn't as good as their first matchup in Jingu Stadium. I really enjoyed Kenta and Tanahashi. I enjoyed Jay and Bushi matches also as well. And I think the problem with Power Struggle is just that there was a ton of rematches of stuff that we've seen a lot this year. So Jay White and Ibushi. We just saw Kenta and Tanahashi in G1. This was the third Shingo and Suzuki match this year. Then we had like the goofy, KOPW stuff with Yano and Sabre, which was a rematch from G1. So it was just a show of a ton of rematches, which you normally don't get on a Power Struggle type show. But I still thought it was a good show, and it definitely, helped advance the scenes for Wrestle Kingdom 15.
Yeah, I don't mind watching like some of this 2 wrestlers having like several matches over a short period of time. Like we said, it felt like Asuka and Sasha Banks had about 100 matches over the summer.
Yeah.
But it's like, you would still be like, well, like I still enjoyed them. Like, yeah, it's the same kind of stuff, but like a good match at the end of the day is still a good match. Like I say, my favourite match was Jay White and Ibushi. I was, like I say, I think overall, like the card overall, like I did enjoy it. Like you say, there's 1 or 2 things that maybe you're a bit like, you didn't need to see, but overall I felt like it certainly delivered for what you were wanting out of it. And a good card, and like you say, is already looking forward to Wrestle Kingdom, which is about 7 weeks away or so.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. It's going to breeze by, especially with the schedule we got this month with World Tag League, Best of Super Junior, and Super J Cup towards the middle of December. So there's going to be a ton of action to kind of keep us, busy until we get towards Wrestle Kingdom season. And the one thing I'm really interested in is seeing what they end up doing with Evil and Sonata. Obviously, Evil's been the champion this year. He's been the main event picture a lot. And then Sonata was just the runner-up in the G1. And typically, if you look at, previous Wrestle Kingdom cards, the runner-up of the G1 usually ends up getting some kind of like big like secondary singles match, either for like the IC or Never title. And I'm not quite sure how they're going to play that out with Sonata right now.
I'm hoping we do see Mox. I think Moxley versus Kenta could be interesting if we do get that. So yeah, no, like you say, in the two matches. Well, the first one we obviously know confirmed. We think we know it's obviously going to be Jay White versus whoever the champ's going to be. But if we do get Ibushi, Naito, and then Naito, Jay White, well, that's 2 matches already. That it's going to be great viewing.
Definitely.
So, Ricky, you were saying there that there were some matches that you weren't happy with the timing for at Full Gear.
Yep.
What were they? Because I've actually got one, but on you go first.
That's Matt Hardy and Sammy G. I think that went for was it 25 odd minutes? I know cinematic matches, and I don't mind cinematic matches. I don't want to see them all the time, but that's Matt Hardy's thing. I felt like that could have been cut short by about 10 minutes or so. And the other one was probably what was the other one? I can't remember now. It might have just been that, actually.
It was so long it felt like 2 matches.
Even no, that let's say could have been cut down by at least 10 minutes. And I think when you look at the opening match, which was Hangman and Kenny Omega, that only went for 15, 16, maybe 17 minutes.
Yeah, I think it goes on that 16-minute range.
Again, and it ties into the whole, the match doesn't necessarily need to be 25, 30 minutes long for it to be a great match, because that was just an absolute great way to kick off the pay-per-view. I don't get caught up in this whole, oh look, the Elite are putting the titles on themselves, because, well, for instance, the Bucks and Omega, they've been some of the best tag teams in the last sort of 5-10 years, and Kenny Omega has been one of the best performers in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years. So whether they're VPs or EVPs or whatever the title is, if they were always going to get the title anyway, whether they were kind of calling the shots or not. So I don't have an issue with Kenny Omega winning. I think my issue was that Hangman didn't win, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be that guy's he's a good card to have. Kind of like Piper. Never ever got the number one title, but he was always featured and done well, etc. I hope Hangman isn't always going to be the one that's sort of from on the outside looking in, and kind of that the shot you saw of the Bucks and Kenny Omega in the ring celebrating, and you saw Hangman in the on the ramp in the entranceway just kind of looking on. It's so that would be my only slight issue I would say from the opening match. But it's not on a knock on Kenny Omega, because at some point, whether you like it or not, you could be the biggest anti-AEW person there is. Well, I think you should accept at some point Kenny Omega was going to get the title, and it had nothing to do with his standing in the company. It was all about how great of a wrestler he is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I know there are people that complain, the Elite, they're going to push themselves. But I feel like they've done a great job of kind of balancing that. But I mean, the company is called All Elite Wrestling. The company was built off of their popularity from being the Elite, and the matches that they were having in New Japan. I mean, those guys are the stars. I mean, I went to a Ring of Honor show a couple of years ago, 2018 December, and Kenny Omega and the Bucks were on the show, and there was meet and greets. The lines for those guys were it was absolutely ridiculous. And then all the other ROH guys, had no lines. Those guys were the draws. They were the absolute stars. And we've seen what's happened with Ring of Honor and they're kind of following since they left. And we're seeing with the American expansion of New Japan, what's happened since those guys have left. Those guys are top stars. They're draws. I mean, it would be kind of dumb not to push those guys and to have them as the faces of your companies winning titles, because that's what the fan base wants. They want to see the Bucks and Kenny and Cody and Hangman succeed and kind of be the forefront of this thing. As far as this match, I absolutely love this match. It's an amazing matchup, Kenny and Hangman. And it seems like they've been kind of doing a slow burn, kind of heel turn for Kenny in the lead up to this match, but he pretty much wrestled straight bay face throughout the match. I think the thing with Hangman, I think they're kind of doing a slow kind of build with him, and it's going to be this kind of slow eventual journey for him to get to the title. And I feel like with what they're doing, I think we're going to see something where the story right now is to get Hangman and the Bucks back together. We've seen some stuff that happens on BTE and some kind of stuff they've been doing. Like you mentioned, Hangman was kind of hanging in the back when they were celebrating in the ring. I think eventually it's going to get to a point where maybe Kenny finally goes heel, turned on Hangman, and the Bucks are not cool with that, and the Bucks and Hangman end up getting back together, and that's kind of started rekindling their friendship, and that kind of helps them. Helps build Hangman up to eventually getting to a world title match. I think it'll probably be, I think Kenny will get the title from Mox, and then down the road you have Hangman versus Kenny for the title, and then you could finally have Hangman beat Kenny there.
Well, that's the point I was going to bring up. I felt shortchanged once this match was finished. I mean, the action was fine, it was good, but this is one of these things that's been... The story has been building basically since they became a tag team on TV. There's that sort of Sheamus Cesaro early days chemistry between them where they were not exactly getting on, then they weren't, and then they've had this tournament. I just felt as if the build to this one was a half-hour super match, and I felt as if I didn't get that, and it came across like it was one of those WWE matches where it's the first match in a series and we'll see better ones down the line, but Kenny is now in the title picture, Hangman isn't, so when will we see the... Like, I want to see them wrestle again, if that makes sense, but when will it be? Will it be after Kenny, if he does win the title?
Yeah, it might be after Kenny wins the title.
Right.
Boys, I'm coming. I'm here.
Oh.
The young boy just barged on in.
Sorry to cut you off.
But yeah, I was saying, yeah, it's probably going to be after Kenny wins the title, or sometime down the road. Who knows? Maybe they could do it on Dynamite again on one of these kind of special shows they do. But that's definitely like a very like long-term story. Definitely, Full Gear was the first chapter in this kind of eventual breakup between these guys, and I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, were kind of expecting. Like I was surprised when they decided to open the card with that show. I think it was a great opener and really set the tone for the whole pay-per-view. But yeah, I definitely think down the line there is money in a Kenny Hangman main event.
That could end up being one of those rivalries over the years.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a long term. This is going to be like one of the key kind of stories, and them rivaling, and then eventually Hangman getting back with the Bucks, and then maybe down the road, eventually you get them all back together. It's going to be this kind of long, winding story that they're going to have.
What were your thoughts on the finish of the match?
Last thing about that, sorry, Clive, was I actually kind of disagree. Like, I felt like after watching the match, like I didn't need to see anymore. Like, in a sense, I was like, in that 16 minutes, I got exactly what I wanted. I felt like even as they came towards the end of the tag title reign, like you started obviously seeing like who's turning on who, what's going to happen here, and then obviously being kept apart in the tournament. I felt like the last two or this match, I thought it was like pretty damn near to like perfect. And like I say, I got what I needed from that match. And if it takes place next year, it could be, was it Fyter Fest or maybe All Out? Yeah, I would definitely sign up for that as well. Like I says, I just hope, as Jeremy says, that is the direction it would do go with, and Hangman isn't going to be left on the outside looking in. But yeah, like I don't have any complaints whatsoever when it comes to these two guys from what I've saw in the last couple of months, and I felt like that match was just perfect.
What about the finish to the match? Because it seemed a bit messy. The One-Winged Angel.
I mean, I liked it. It was, Hangman, he was struggling, he was fighting. He obviously knows, like, if I get hit with this One-Winged Angel, I'm done. So he was, trying to fight, kind of keep his head up, and Kenny had to fight to try and get the head, and then finally he was able to grab the head and drill him down and get the One-Winged Angel. So I really liked the finish.
That's fair enough.
And he hit a few V-triggers as well, so you can, if you want, you can flip it and be like, well, Hangman was just completely done, dead on his feet, so, Kenny's obviously struggling, trying to get him into the One-Winged Angel. It's not going to look as pretty kind of thing, because Hangman basically is just like a limp body kind of thing. No, I certainly didn't have an issue with that finish.
Okay, I'm in the minority then, that's fine. Joshua, hello.
Hello, everybody. I am here, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you guys for having us. I haven't seen you guys in a while. You guys are looking handsome. Look at these handsome gentlemen right here. These gents.
Handsome janitors over here, yep. You should have heard the stuff Jeremy was saying about you when you were out of the house.
Oh, he's a backstabber. I understand. Ricky's got the fresh fade and the strong beard. I can't grow a beard. Jeremy's got the beard. Oh, man. Popping up a cold one. I'm ready to do this. don't know why we're talking about AEW. I thought we were here to talk about New Japan. No, I'm just playing.
You missed that part. We can go back and we can just ask Josh the exact same questions we asked Jeremy.
I thought you guys were saving that for last. Are you really?
No, we're doing the bracket, New Japan bracket for last. So we had.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but Ricky had some power struggle questions for me.
Oh, we're good. I trust Jeremy. He's got okay takes.
So, were there any other matches? See, I'm thinking of the biggest build. So, the biggest build ones for me were that Hangman Kenny Omega match and the tag team title match. What are your thoughts on that one, Josh? You want to chip in first with the tag title match?
Oh, certainly. So, I've got a divisive take on the match, and it seems this match is being so praised and so lauded in most circles. Dave Meltzer called it one of the 10 best, U.S. tag team matches of the decade or of all time.
Ooh.
And I really disagree, but here's the thing. The match was fantastic. It's probably, I would call it one of the smartest tag matches I've ever seen from a storytelling perspective. Just all the different elements, the callbacks to their influences, the leg work, playing off of the injury that Matt has, just the little heel things that FTR do to kind of cut off the ring, keep that top control and, stop all the different tags, keeping those guys from, being able to tag out. And then they did a lot of high flying stuff FTR did that they don't normally do. And that was kind of their undoing in the story of the match. So from that aspect, I thought it was great. Granted, and it was the first time these guys have ever worked together. So it's hard to expect to have the lofty expectations people had when it's the first time they've ever worked together. I think they did a fantastic job. If I was to rate it, I'd go 4.25, which is really good. But I don't even think it's the best tag team match in AEW, even this year. Uh-huh. And I definitely don't think it's one of the 10 best of all time. I think they have a better match in them for sure. But my biggest complaint and gripe when it comes to FTR, I think they don't do a good enough job stooging for the guys that they do that incredible job, like I mentioned, of cutting off the ring, keeping the guys isolated, having a dominating, heat run where they're getting heat. But when it comes time for the hot tag, they do not do a good job stooging for the other guys that are coming in and beating them up. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the tag teams that they emulate and idolize, like the Brainbusters, like the Midnight Express, when the good guys would get their comeuppance, those guys would sell their asses off. I mean, wobbly legs, crazy facials, like they take a punch and they'd flip over, like Kurt Hennig. They don't do that stuff. They do the standard, they take their bumps, and then they go back to doing what they're doing. It's almost like they don't want to look weak for the other team. So it's like they want to have the top game of the Four Horsemen, but then they want to have the selling game of like the Legion of Doom or the Steiner Brothers. They don't look weak at all. And it's hard for me that when you do Southern style tag, which is one of my favorite styles of tag wrestling, and I've watched it my whole life, the bad guys have to have that moment where they really fire up the crowd by selling their asses off super hard, like a Kyle O'Reilly. When Kyle O'Reilly gets beat up in his tag matches, he's all over the place. That's what I'm talking about. They don't do that, and it is a huge detriment that people are not talking about. But at the same time, I don't want to besmirch the match too much because it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. The issues that I have with the match was there was one where they were doing the dueling sharpshooters to sort of emulate what they did with DIY at Toronto that time when they were holding on to each other. But they were at the ropes, so when they were holding hands, would that not have counted as a rope break? I can't remember if the ref stopped that at that point or not, but it was just they were looking for a visual rather than staying within the rules. And the other thing, I'm a big fan of Revival's work, even stuff that they did on the main roster in WWE. And one of the reasons that I love them so much is their strict adherence to tag team rules, and even using those rules to their advantage in a dirty way if they can. And the tag rules in AEW matches seem a bit more lenient. There were times during that one where I wasn't aware of who the legal tag was, and it came across like tornado rules at times, so it doesn't complement FTR's best attributes, personally.
I think those are points.
Yeah, and to that spot you were talking about, Clive, yeah, there should have been a rope break there, but they didn't break the rope. Matt ended up dragging him back into the middle of the ring, and Rick Knox broke up the submission, so that definitely should have been a break there. And yeah, with AEW's kind of house style for their tag team matches, it's very, super indie style, something, PWG style, a style the Bucks have kind of perfected throughout the years, very similar to like a Dragon Gate style, kind of this, very quick, high pace, big moves. And yeah, FTR doesn't really wrestle that style. And so, yeah, it was kind of a mix for them. And a lot of the teams in AEW do wrestle that style. You have SCU and Private Party, Jurassic Express, Hybrid 2 that kind of wrestle that style. They're used to that kind of indie Dragon Gate, PWG, fast-paced style where FTR is not.
There's one other thing, too, I wanted to throw in. Because I do have a lot of thoughts on this match. I'm sorry. The crowd was not really responding during this match the way you'd expect them to. Now, I could chalk that up to one of two things. One might be that the crowd was so honed in on this because there was so much anticipation that it was almost like a Japanese crowd. Like they were like, living with them, and they didn't get the usual pops like you normally would. That is possible. Mm-hmm. But think was really happening, if you want my honest opinion, I think they got a little too cute with the callbacks. And what I mean by that was that they were so insidery that your general fan might not have even realized what the callbacks even were. And to kind of contrast this to Hangman and Kenny against the Bucks, that match obviously also had a lot of callbacks. But what was beautiful about that match was if you came in as an outsider and you didn't know anything, the spots that were callbacks were so action-filled and so crowd-pleasing that you didn't actually have to have that insight. You'd still get popped by it. But if you happen to know the deeper meaning and level of a lot of the moves, you got rewarded even further for it. Whereas with this one, you kind of did need to have understanding of what they were doing to appreciate it. Without it, the match actually did go down. And I have a suspicion that a lot of people – they were doing so many smart things that, like, when you're watching it on camera and you're up close and you can see it, you can appreciate it. But when you're far, far away, like that audience was, they weren't getting popped by those smart things like you would expect them to because they were a little too cute and a little too insidery. And I feel like that was a detriment to the match too. I think when you go out there, you have to know your audience. You can't just wrestle for yourself. And that's kind of what I think they were doing, was like they're wrestling for themselves to tell the story that they wanted to tell, but not taking into account like crowd reaction is a huge element as to how a match is perceived. And the crowd was, if you go back and watch it, trust me when I say this was one of the quietest matches of the night when you wouldn't have expected that. It was supposed to be like,
the big match.
Yeah, but you know what? I could be wrong because you look at all the rating sites and everyone's raving about this match like it's one of the greatest of all time. And I don't see that. I just thought it was a very, very good.
Yeah, we had our buddy Floyd, host of All Things Elite here on Social Suplex. He was in the building for full gear and loved the match watching live. And pretty much what we heard from him is like the crowd was really into the match. So I don't know if it's just one of those things, for whatever reason, just didn't come through the pay-per-view feed or...
It came through in the Mox match, came through in the Kenny match, came through in the Darby-Cody match. I don't know.
It was very loud in the Jericho match as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what happened there.
I think a couple of things that Josh said, like talking about the callbacks, I absolutely loved the Bucks coming out in the purple and gold and FTR coming out in the Boston Celtics call. I loved that. I actually, I think the anticipation for this match, it had been built up for years upon years without it actually being we're talking about one day we will wrestle and we will rejoice, etc., etc.
Right.
I think we've built it up so much that if this wasn't the greatest wrestling match, the greatest tag team match of all time, it was going to automatically be that disappointed. So I would agree with Josh. I thought it was a great match. it probably didn't hit the heights that we expected it to, because I think our expectations were through the roof. And if it wasn't like a quote-unquote 5-star classic, then it just didn't deliver in that sense. But I thought it was a great match. I absolutely loved the ending. How you say the whole storyline going into it. No flips, just fists. And what was their undoing? The fact that they tried to do something that they don't ever do.
Yeah, Cash Wheeler trying to hit that springboard 450.
I've never saw them do stuff like that, and you could be like, well, do you know, maybe like the storyline, as you say, that they don't do stuff like that, and it's just fists, and maybe they want to do something to prove a point, and that was their undoing. Like, I thought that was great. That was great. And I know we're talking about doing all these kind of inside moves, like moments and stuff that a lot of people might not have realised. It could have been a kind of an undoing as well. I think a lot of people probably would have noticed those things, but for some reason I don't know why the crowd it never came through. Like, because I agree, like the crowd you heard the crowd in just about every single match. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm part of me is wondering, is like maybe people in attendance, and I know Floyd says no, the crowd was hot for it. Maybe people in attendance were somewhat disappointed in the match as well, because I've saw a lot of different takes. I've saw a lot of people saying that was okay, but then I've also saw other people in other end of the spectrum saying no, that was a great match. Like I thought it was excellent. I just building into the match, I hated the stipulation going into it because we just saw that with Cody, and it was like, well, surely I thought FTR were going to win, but completely forgetting about the stipulation, but you're kind of thinking like, surely you're not going to do it again. And I guess for me, there's a disappointing thing being such a FTR/revival mark, and like I think they're great, is that their first significant challenge for those titles they lost. Like, I know they beat Hangman and Omega, and they've had some matches on Dynamite, but this was the test, and you lost. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's to tie back into what we says about before we started, when we spoke about Hangman and Omega. Regardless of what the Bucks standing or what their titles are, their roles are in that company, at some point they were going to get the tag titles, and I'm personally surprised it took this long, but it was going to happen at some point. I'm just kind of disappointed that FTR didn't win the first one. I could have done without a stipulation, and we could have went to Revolution or Fyter Fest, where we could, and we might, I don't think we will, but you could have had like a best of 3 type thing. So, FTR win the first one, Bucks win, and then we get the rubber match. But like I say, I thought it was a really good match. Certainly in my eyes, like I said, probably didn't live up to my expectations because we were through the roof. But that's not to say it wasn't like an outstanding match.
Yeah, and the build for this match, I agree with you. The whole build for this match was really bad. You have the Bucks kind of doing all these helix things, or super kicking everybody, super kicking Tony Schiavone. They're being, douches to their friends and kind of having this heel persona, being heels of Private Party, and then kind of making that last minute switch towards the last week of kind of going back to being baby faces and putting a stipulation on. So the whole bill was just kind of convoluted and weird. So that definitely kind of hurt for me, the anticipation into the match. And honestly, going into the match, I was worried about the match because there was so much hype and build into it. And honestly, I haven't really been high on FTR's work in AEW. Right. I did not love the Omega Hangman match at All Out, which I was there live for. And some of their other stuff, I really haven't been as keen on them. And so I was kind of worried about this match going in. But it ended up being a great matchup. And, personally for me, I liked some of the callbacks they did. The fact that they were doing moves of teams that they've kind of modeled after. You had FTR doing the heart attack and the brain buster pile driver, the Bucks doing the Hardy combo of Twist of Fate and Swanton, And there was another double team. They were doing like the Rock and Roll Midnight Express, like double Hurricane Ranas, and so there's a lot of kind of great moves that they were doing from teams that have influenced their style. So I really did like that. I thought that kind of adds to the story. And I get being disappointed that maybe FTR lost the first match, but obviously with that stipulation, the Bucks had to win. But even if there wasn't that stipulation, I still feel the Bucks might have had to win just because it might have been a TNA situation where you're bringing in this WWE tag team and they're going to beat your top branded tag team. And so again, that kind of makes you think, oh well, WWE guys are always better. They just came in and beat our best tag team. So I kind of like that the Bucks beat FTR first, kind of establishing like, hey, the AEW guys can be just as good as the WWE guys, and you can always do a rematch down the line where FTR can get the win back.
I think ultimately there's nothing wrong with the callbacks. The callbacks were good, but the thing in pro wrestling is you're working to get the biggest reaction that you possibly can. So it's not what you do, it's when and how you do it that matters the most, So that's the one thing I'll say for that. As far as I agree. I thought the build was really bad, but as far as the whole thing, like if we lose, we can't challenge again. It might have felt too soon, but that was like a year ago almost. So it's like we've already seen someone who can't challenge again. So what if they had lost? They would have had to have adhered to that stipulation. I'm not trying to like go back and say like it was the best thing for them to do, because I think it added unnecessary. It didn't like add a lot to the stips or whatever. Because I think at that point most people did think that the Bucks were going to win. But if they had lost, they wouldn't have been able to challenge for the titles again. So there's at least that we've seen it before. It could happen again sort of mentality. But I think the good news here, regardless of any of the criticisms we have, the match was fantastic. People are raving about it. These guys are going to do business again down the road. And I can't see how management or the wrestlers involved couldn't see this as anything more than a rousing success, especially considering that FTR have had their detractors. And in my opinion, this is the best match they've had since they've came to the company. So I think that the stock has got to be on the rise for them based off of how this all went down.
I'd say so. It was, my criticisms aside, I still enjoyed the match. Give me chaotic tag team matches any day of the week. I still enjoyed it. It's not the revival of old so far anyway. But
they didn't have time to work out the match for like 5 weeks.
So there was another match. Now this is bizarrely ended up being one of my favourites of the night, where there was a title change, and it was Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin. Now it's a shame personally that someone who was implicated in speaking out, and it seems to have just been swept aside, is now the face of TNT, as it were. But I really enjoyed the match. I think Darby Allin, who was announced as £150 or something along those lines, like, no way, pal, you're not £150. But apart from that, for how slight he is able to make his offense look impactful to bigger guys. There was a specific point where he did a sort of a shoulder barge suicide dive, the sort of Lope suicider, and it looked jarring to Cody, who's now rather muscular. He's just got this, it's like stretching back a rubber band with Darby Allin. He's really fast and impactful that way. Cody's Avalanche Crossroads was delightful. I don't know why I enjoy it so much, but the commentary team admonishing Cody's ego in the ring, like he's showing off, or he's not taking it seriously enough, or he's distracted. I like that they play into that, and I thought the finish was really good, where it was just all these roll-ups, one after another, schoolboys fold-ups, and then it just caught Cody off guard. I thoroughly enjoyed that match.
I like the finish as well. I particularly like the point where, do you remember where Cody slapped Darby at one point in the back of his head, and I felt like as the match kind of went on, you could kind of see Cody's demeanour changing a little bit more. I was not going to lie, like I think it's probably my dislike of Cody that I was like, yeah, he's not going to lose this title. So I was surprised that he did. But then when he gets down on one knee and presents him with the title, I'm just like, that's why I don't like you. That's just something. And that's the first time he's been called Cody Rhodes. I think, did he get his name back?
Got it back.
Yeah, he got it back.
Yeah, so that was surprising that that kind of came out of the blue. Yeah, that was a really good match. I think this was probably, along with the FTR match, I think this was maybe the second best match of the card, for me anyway. And I'm glad they kind of went with Darby Allin, because we spoke about with Hangman earlier on, that we don't want him to be someone who kind of gets his opportunities and then ultimately loses them, and he's always on the outside looking in. Well, Darby Allin's had a couple of big time matches that he hasn't won, and it's nice for him to get this. And this was the best match I think they've had. I think they've had a couple. Did not have one at Fyter Fest, I think. Was that not the draw at Fyter Fest?
Yeah, the first match was the draw at Fyter Fest. Actually, we were there live for that matchup. That was an awesome match.
We were there live for 2 of their matches.
Yeah, we had one in the tournament as well.
Yeah, the TNT tournament, which Darby lost with the tilt. And then there was the January 1st matchup they had at home.
Cody won
at Homecoming,
and it almost went the whole time limit.
Yeah,
we I think for us, especially for me, I do disagree. I don't think it was the second best match of the night, but it was still it was fantastic. These guys oddly have great chemistry together for whatever reason, and I did think it was pretty awesome for Cody to kind of hand the title to him, just because the story that they were telling was Cody's the whole reason that he was even brought into the company, and Cody's the first guy he wrestled and the guy that he's been coming up short against. And they kind of borrowed from the storyline that they were running in Evolve before Cody got signed.
Yeah.
And they never got to pay that story off because of the falling out that he had with Evolve management. But they were leading to something like this. So this guy's never really had a crowning achievement of any sorts. This was his crowning moment. And just, them playing off the backstory of the 3 previous matches. I love when series of matches do that, and they did that fantastic here. And, this guy, Darby, not about him, but this is a guy who was literally 2 years ago sleeping in his car and had no food to eat. And me and Jeremy used to watch him wrestle at the Orpheum all the time, jumping off the top of the building and doing crazy shit.
Yeah.
When we went to see him wrestle Cody the first time, nobody knew who he was and no one was cheering for him, and we were screaming to get this man some support. And now look where we're at. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
We sorry, Jeremy, we've had Darby Allin on the network, I think a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And Josh, you say a falling out with Evolve management. Did you mean to say a falling out with Triple H since WWE?
Well, what he said was, he was yo, if I went to WWE, I'd just be another 205 Live guy. Look how those guys got treated. Can you imagine? Look at the parallels of where his career would have been had he gone to WWE. He was he's very small. He's smaller than the majority of the 205 Livers. He'd probably get treated maybe not even as good as Drake Maverick.
Right. And I think another issue that happened too, with the whole Evolve NXT partnership, you would have all these NXT guys come in, and not even the top NXT guys, like
Velveteen.
You would have Velveteen come in, but you would also have some of the lower NXT guys come in and beat all the Evolve guys.
Oh, like Babatunde and stuff.
Right, and then you would have the big NXT guys come in. Also, they would beat the top Evolve guys, and I know that was the issue. Darby's I'm not a mark. I don't care about wrestling an NXT guy in a big main event and then having to lose this NXT guy. So I know he had some issues with that too, and then there were some things with him and Gabe that I don't know all the details, but there were some issues between them as well. Because, like Josh was mentioning, there was this whole big plan. Darby was supposed to win the Evolve title, I think, New York Mania weekend, I think was going to be the culmination of him winning that title. And they had to change plans, and he eventually left Evolve and went to AEW. But, yeah, that's kind of the background there. But, yeah, I love this matchup. Been a big fan of Darby since we've seen him here in the local indie scene here in Florida. And I just love this whole kind of story that they've told with Cody from the very beginning, from Fyter Fest, and kind of how they've built it here. I don't think the story's over. I think there's going to be more to come, but I'm glad that Darby kind of finally got his real big moment, his first big break.
I would argue if you compare, it's the company short-lived, but they haven't had a lot of title changes. But if you look at all the title changes that they've ever had, like people getting crowned, even like inaugurally, this is the most feel-good title change in the history of the company, like so far. Like because it had that like Bret Hart beating, Roddy Piper feeling, or like Bulldog beating Bret in Wembley. Like it felt like that, felt special. Like this guy really worked his way. Now he's made, and this is the first time it's really felt like that in the company, at least for me.
Yeah.
It was definitely a big win for him. And another match that I did not think I would enjoy, but I ended up enjoying it more than most. It was another big match for MJF. It now sees him winning it, with him and Wardlow are now in the inner circle. Now this was obviously Jericho. We've seen all the memes the last few days with his posing like a sack of potatoes for his 50th birthday. But they wrestled a slower match than most of the matches on the card. But I think it worked. There was a lot of posturing to the crowd, so everyone was invested, so there was already this atmosphere around the match. I thought MJF wrestled, well, they both did, very smart. It's probably one of the best working a body part matches I've seen in quite a long time. I thought they both played that well, with MJF like swapping over to try and make sure Jericho had to chop him with his right hand and blocking the left hand and spinning him around and stuff, and even small details like things you'd learn in day one of heel wrestler school, where the MJF's running the ropes and he stops and gives the middle fingers or the other rude gestures to the fans, and he's standing there, but Jericho just pulls him out without MJF realising. Just small subtle things that sort of add to the big theatre stage performance that match was, and I just felt it was well wrestled, even though it was slower paced. I just enjoyed what I was seeing. Really good work in Jericho's arm throughout. But the only issue I had with it, there was 2 times where the ref's positioning wasn't great, because there was a point where MJF thumbed Jericho in the eye, or vice versa, and Aubrey Edwards, she must have seen it, and she must have clearly seen MJF use the tights as well to roll up Jericho. But apart from that, those things aside, thoroughly enjoyed it. Ricky?
I liked MJF's entrance with the jacket.
Yes, that's what I meant to say.
That was cool.
And
that
using
was.
some of Jericho's finishing moves as well, or trying to.
Yep. I also like the ending where MJF kind of faked being hit and then gets the 1, 2, 3. Sometimes heel versus heel just doesn't work, especially when you get like 2 heels that are constantly trying to cheat, etc. I think this match, it went the same length as the opening match, but it felt longer. I suppose that might be down to the pacing or the fact that I'm just not that much of a fan of Jericho's in-ring work these days. It was still a good match though. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I don't mind watching slower paced matches. I don't need everything to be like 100 miles per hour. I kind of like seeing like a slower paced match. Like, that's why sometimes I enjoy at times watching a Randy Orton type match. I don't need to see all these high flying moves. So like I said, I don't have it wasn't like a great match. I think if anything, it probably was maybe in my mind the weakest on the card. But like I said, there was like aspects of the match I like the entrance, like the finish, and as you mentioned, just kind of running the ropes and coming to come to a halt. So those aspects of it I liked, but overall, like I say, it felt like a chore at times having to watch the match.
Yeah, I definitely kind of agree with you, Ricky. Like, I thought the match was good. I didn't think it was great. I think you could probably shave some minutes off of this matchup. I mean, there was kind of a good story. You know, Jericho wanting to see this edge from MJF, kind of seeing that. And then, you know, kind of pretty much outsmarting Jericho at the end there to get the win and get into the inner circle. So overall, I mean, it was a good story, good finish. But yeah, you know, you mentioned Jericho, and I think it's just one of those things where, like, I think he's getting to the point now where you got to question, like, is Jericho washed? Like, a lot of his singles matches have not been hitting the highest of heights. Coming off of him versus Omega from the Tokyo Dome a few years ago, and some of the bigger the Naito matches, like, he's not quite hitting the high peaks in his big singles matches. The Orange Cassidy stuff wasn't all. It was fun, but it wasn't like any like high level like great thing that you're gonna like rave about for the rest of the year. And so, yeah, it's like one of these things. Like, is Jericho washed? Does he maybe need to think about either hanging it up or really focusing on getting on better shape? I don't know what the situation there is.
I can tell you what he needs to do. He needs to stop drinking so much. The man's an alcoholic, and he needs to get back in that DDPY because it got him into the best shape of his entire life. Apparently, he tells me every single podcast. But in all seriousness,
but in the same breath, he's also eating all those Omaha steaks, so he's just putting the weight back on.
You guys did a great job recapping the match. The only thing I'm excited for is the fallout of the match going forward. What's going to happen with the Inner Circle? This is the most interesting the Inner Circle's been in a long time, having him in there. So it's going to be really fun. I can't wait to see what kind of business they do and where the story leads, because we wanted classic book, wrestling booking, good, long form storytelling, and that's what they're doing here. So I'm, regardless of the outcome of like how good the match was, like the story is great.
Yep. I'm trying to think.
Did you guys talk about Mox and Kingston?
That's what I was trying to think. I was trying to remember their names there.
Oh my God. So I would like to start. This was my match of the night. If I'm being completely honest, I would probably say Kenny and Hangman was probably in ring for me the best match. But like this match really, really landed for me. I mean, I thought it had the best build by far. I think that these are two of the best promo guys in the wrestling industry right now. The promos that they cut on each other, like leading up to this in the video packages, but especially the Go Home show. I hated the AEW Go Home show this past week, but that segment where they weren't allowed to hit each other before the match, so they're nose to nose, and like you could feel the tension, and it's so personal. It was fantastic. And then, big fight feel. I mean, this is a match that just happened on AEW a few weeks ago with a definitive finish, and you would feel like you wouldn't really want to see it again a few weeks later. And they talked us into buying the pay-per-view and to going to the building. And this was one of the coolest I Quit matches, because you guys know I'm an old school wrestling fan, so I've watched a lot of I Quit matches. I've seen it worked many different ways, but this one wasn't worked the way most of them are, where you have them in a hold. Referee's asking them, or there's a microphone and it's in their face. They never really stopped to do that. It was literally a hardcore match where these guys were just trying to put each other out. And then finally, if one of them got to the point where the other person was done, that's when you knew the definitive finish was going to come. And these guys killed themselves. Commentary team did an awesome job putting over Kingston's connection to Tracy Smothers, who just passed away, and like Too Sweet Larry Sweeney, or Sour and Sweet Larry Sweeney, and how he kind of dedicated this match to him. And he came out in the Mitsuharu Misawa colors, and this was like for people who are diehard independent wrestling fans, this was so wonderful to see Eddie Kingston put in this position. This is also someone who was on our network just a year or two ago talking about he was going to quit. And I was in New York and I watched him have a match with oh God, I forget who it was, but I saw him wrestle in what was supposed to be his retirement match, because he wasn't getting hired anywhere, and like the wrestling industry was done with him. And now he's headlining a pay-per-view against Jon Moxley for the world title. Like, it was incredible. And then the final moment, the way they worked the I Quit, where Jon Moxley has the barbed wire, and this isn't even to say everything that happened in the match and all the brutality, but like the final moment where Jon Moxley puts him in the bulldog choke with his arm wrapped in barbed wire, and Bryce, what's his name, Rensburg, who they both have extensive histories with on a personal and professional level, and he looks at Bryce and he starts crying. He starts crying because he can't get out, but he doesn't want to quit. And then he he's crying because he knows that he has nowhere to go, and he like motions him over, and you don't hear him say "I quit." You just see him like moving his head a little bit, and you don't hear it, but you know that he said something to the ref, and then the ref calls it, and you're like, "That's fucking real." This was like the most real feud, the most real thing that happened the whole night. It was incredible.
I really enjoyed the aesthetics of there being no microphones, because I like the hardcore element of I Quit matches, and I think it worked with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso because there's no audience. Their matches have been built a lot on dialogue in the ring, which have made those matches as special as they are. So it was fine to just have them say, the ref asking, "Do you quit? Do you quit?" But when they've got the microphone shoved in their face, it just takes you out of it. So what they did here, I didn't spot the crying. I actually didn't spot when Kingston quit, but just seeing the ref react the way he did, that told me that obviously the match was over. I do thoroughly enjoy that there was no mic work involved in it, definitely.
The good thing I liked about the finish was he didn't pass out.
Yeah.
Like that, that's okay now and then, but I feel like you see it too much, and I'm like, it's almost as if like, oh, we want to protect the loser, and it's like, no, fuck that, like, give us a definitive winner here, and we got it, and you could, as Josh says, like, you could see just how much it pained them to say the words. The only question I would ask, and I've saw quite a few hot takes, that people are saying that they should have put the title on Kingston here.
No.
I don't think they should have.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we're going to get Moxley and Omega, and it just how did Moxley debut when he came into AEW? It was his first feud. Like, I love how they've kind of gone full circle on this now.
Yeah, I mean, I love Eddie Kingston as much as the next guy, but yeah, I don't think putting the title on him would have been the right move. You know, maybe if this was like an independent promotion, a little, you know, a super indie, if it was your AAW, yeah, maybe you put the title on Eddie Kingston, but AEW's on TNT. TV revenue is their biggest thing. It's keeping them alive during this pandemic era. You need a champion that's going to draw viewers, and Mox has been that champion. Mox is champion, does the best segments, has great matches. He's proven to be a great world champion, and Eddie Kingston is just unproven right now in that kind of role. And so you can't really, you know, hedge your bets in this kind of uncertain times on a guy like Eddie Kingston just yet. I mean, you can definitely build him, keep, you know, getting him over with the AEW audience. But yeah, I think the right call was Mox retaining. Love the whole story. You know, a lot of great promos that they did, especially on the countdown. You know, talking about, you know, for his mom. You know, he's like, you know, wrestling is the reason why you don't have grandkids, why you don't have a daughter-in-law.
Yeah,
I want to bring back this world title so I can at least say, hey, this is a why, you know, I've sacrificed and why you don't have, you know, grandkids and a daughter-in-law. And that just, you know, that's that pain that you saw in his face when he had to say I quit, because he knows he's going to have to go back to mom and be like, Ma, you know, I didn't win the world title.
Do it.
I didn't do it. I had to quit, Ma. And so, yeah, it was just a great story. And also, you know, Mox, you know, wanting to be his friend still and trying to get back to the old Eddie Kingston and, you know, rekindle their friendship. All like, that was just kind of great.
Nah, fuck that. Listen, if this guy keeps talking the way he's talking, and he's getting in better shape, a lot of people are not giving him credit for that. He's been slimming down, and he's like really trying. If he keeps talking this way, there's no telling what might happen down the line. Like, this guy one day could actually be the champion, because this is, you know, more than it's a cosmetic business, it's an entertainment business. And like, the biggest stars in the history of wrestling are guys that can talk their asses off, and there is nobody in the company except for maybe Jericho, and at this point I don't even know if I agree with that can MJF is like the one other guy that can talk as good as Kingston, but he's like for real, like he's like this Yonkers boy that you're like, oh, he's about that life, he's ready to run it, you know, he wants to smoke. It's awesome.
It's in the limited time I've seen him on AEW, he's spitting the fire regularly. So, see, with the rest of the card, I didn't watch Elite Deletion at all, and no interest in Orange Cassidy. The women's match was alright, but if you guys want to talk about some of the matches that are left, feel free.
You know what? I'll say this for the Elite Deletion. If you like that stuff, if that's your shtick, and I like it, then you would have loved this, which I did. I liked it a lot. I did go too long, but I liked it. But if you don't like that, you're gonna hate it, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, Elite Deletion. I mean, I've always been a fan of the deletion matches that they did in Impact. Like we talked about earlier, yeah, this match went too long. It had some weird tones. I feel like the deletion matches were a little bit more goofier and outlandish.
Yeah.
And it kind of had like a funny tone at first, then it was kind of serious, and then went back to funny. You had Hurricane and Gangrel showing up.
They're trying to toe the line.
Yeah, they went into the dome of deletion, and it got super serious again, and Matt's getting his revenge, and came this kind of blood war thing. But overall, it was fine. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was.
The women's match sucked.
Yeah, Sheeta and Nyla Rose, their May match was way better.
Their May match ruled, and this one wasn't good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here. The chemistry just seemed to be off.
They overbooked it. It got convoluted.
And what was the point? And I suppose they kind of left it open, but Vicky Guerrero was talking the talk for weeks, and then I thought they were going to start scrapping straight away, and I thought, well, that was a really pointless run as manager, but it's still going on so far.
They're trying to tell a story with Nyla, because at this point Nyla's just really been a monster, and there's nothing to really sink your teeth into when it comes to her, like as far as character wise. So this is going to define her as a character. I don't know if it's going to be a baby story or a heel story. There is a way they could do both, or I mean one or the other, but ultimately it's going to be, her getting away from her handler and becoming her own whatever she's going to be, whether it's a heel or a face.
Right.
I don't know if she needed one in the first place.
I think so. She's a terrible promo.
Really?
I think so, but other people don't agree, but I think she's a terrible promo.
I think she's a better promo than a wrestler.
I think she's a pretty good wrestler.
Yeah, I thought her promos were fine, but I understand wanting to kind of add Vicky. And I mean, if there was a crowd, like that would have been a great act for to get a ton of heat with that. But also, with COVID, we couldn't really work on that. But yeah,
I really like the John Silver
Orange Cassidy
match. John Silver's so over. They were getting dueling chants in the building, which was awesome. I mean, right now, if there was live crowds, John Silver would be a megastar. That's how over he's getting. A lot of people that don't follow it don't realize, but like what's happening with him on being the elite, he's becoming the next big thing in wrestling. And it sounds crazy, but it's true. And I thought that match was really entertaining. I did see some people down on it. I don't get why, because I thought those guys maximized the time they had, and I thought
especially following Omega and Hangman.
Yes,
they did an excellent job. They're both really great wrestlers. And yeah, with Silver, we've seen with BTE, it's a star-making machine. They've gotten a lot of people over on that show. SCU was kind of born out of BTE. We had the whole, the Jay Lethal gimmick, the flip cord, and there's so many guys you can look back that kind of got their starts off BTE, and now John Silver is kind of the next guy here. Super over on that show, hilarious, and that's been playing through now. And Tony Khan's seen that on BTE and's kind of been giving Silver this kind of little push here, and so. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of Silver, and also Cassidy just came out of that Jericho program, so he was still kind of hot. And so
Plus, Silver's raw.
Yeah, Silver. Yeah,
he's fucking raw. He can really wrestle.
Yeah, both guys. Yeah, especially Silver. Yeah, great matchup here following Omega Hangman. So
overall, I thought the show was very good. I don't think this is the best pay-per-view they've ever had. On paper, I think it had the potential to be, and a lot of people are saying it's the best. I don't think it was. I still think their inaugural pay-per-view is the best they've ever done.
Yeah.
But it was really good. I mean, it was awesome.
Ricky?
I would pretty much agree with what everyone says. I think earlier on we says about the Matt Hardy match that went on slightly too long. Women's match. They've not done a good job at all with the women, but whatever. Let them hopefully sort that mess out. And Orange Cassidy, I think the Orange Cassidy match, that was like less than 10 minutes, and for what it was, fun match. And I think, as Jeremy says, bit of a bad spot to be in when you follow that great opener. I think going into it, and Josh says it there, I think going into it on paper, it probably looked like the best pay-per-view they had. But coming out of it, I wouldn't say it was, but that's not to say it wasn't like a really, really, really good show.
It was too long.
Some of it, yep.
Like, you know, I'm of the opinion, personally, you shouldn't be doing more than one pay-per-view over 3 hours a year. I think it's fine if you want to do your big super show. We don't even know which one's the big super show, but if you want to do a big super show that's, you know, 4 hours, 3.5, whatever, that's cool. Even 5 if you really want to push the envelope. But they're regular. I mean, they were shortening up these pay-per-views, but for a while they were doing 3, you know, or like 4 hours, which is what this was. And almost every time that they've done 4 hours, there's too much time and too many misses where I know you want to get everybody on the pay-per-view and give everybody opportunities, and you know, but that's the problem. The show was too long, and that's why some of these matches dragged.
Yeah, they need to tighten up the pay-per-view timing there. And I think, too, they need to be a part of just re-educating fans, because I feel like we've kind of gotten into this mindset like, oh, you know, big pay-per-views, everybody has to have 30 minutes for their match. We have to have 8 30-minute matches. Nope. And it's like, no, we don't need that. You could have a match that's 10, 15 minutes, and it still be, you know, a great match. We talked about Open Mega Hangman. That match went about 15, 16 minutes. Still a great matchup. They didn't need, you know, to go 30, 45 minutes. And so I think they kind of need to think about restructuring the pay-per-views and maybe cutting down on the match time and tightening things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So that was quite an in-depth Full Gear review there, but now this is the reason why we've got our Floridian friends on. So for anyone who's not listened for a while, Ricky and I are planning to do a sort of March Madness type thing where we're going to collate 64 wrestlers and pit them against each other in a March Madness style bracket, and those episodes will be released probably now that we're needing the time. There can be some Christmas specials for you all to sit and laugh at our hot takes about who's going to beat who. We have, Ricky, I need to ask you about something in particular. We've got 42 names so far, but I believe you were wanting to get 1 or 2 more Stardoms.
You wanted to remove AJ Lee.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
Right, so I asked James if he can give me 2 names from Stardom, Joshi Wrestling, whatever he wants, and he says, I've got 3 names. And I was like, oh, give me all 3. So I thought I would present the 3 in between the 4 of us if we wanted to kick off AJ Lee, because that's who you didn't want on the list.
Shouldn't be on.
Fine by me.
So the 3 James gave me were... Let me pull up the conversation. Right, so we've got Arisa Nakajima.
Yes, 100%.
Yep.
Satomura.
Yep. Yeah, Mako, yep.
We've got her on.
And Takahashi, Nene Takahashi.
And
we
I can't
put
speak
all
to
3
Jeremy
and took out AJ Lee.
We already have Satomura on.
You do.
Did we?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, aye, she was...
Oh, did we take her on?
You put her
When
on
did we take her?
Rance episode.
The one with Rance, like, I was really ensured that she was on.
Yeah.
I was listening to that on the way over here, you guys. I was screaming in my car. You have no idea. But yes, you do have Miko on there, and she's well deserved.
I didn't realize we put her on. Right, so we've got 2 then. So we can remove AJ Lee and think of 1 more WWE one, or we can let these guys have an additional New Japan pick.
I'm happy to go for Blackjack here, 21. That gives us 21 spaces for the New Japan.
Well,
okay.
I can think of one other person that I'm going to try and slide in here if we're going to have one extra spot.
Okay.
1 extra New Japan person?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine.
Right, so, gents, the floor is yours. Things got partially heated on a message back and forth last night, and these guys are much more knowledgeable and well versed when it comes to New Japan. So we've got 21 names.
We already know about 6 or 7 of the names. Like we should just rattle them off straight away because we know several of them there's not going to be any debate about.
Right, well, hold on till I put the numbers in. Shout out to Google Docs once again because they're making my Christmas shopping a lot easier this year. Thank you. Right, go for it. So who are the ones that are dead set?
So obviously I would say Jeremy and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say just looking at the list, Josh has presented Tanahashi, Okada, Ospreay, Ibushi, Naito. We've got 5. I'm looking through. Ishii, Jay White, there's 7.
Hold on.
Shibata on the list. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So there's 8.
Right, sorry, I've only typed 3. Right.
I feel like it's cheating because I gave you guys a list way ahead of time, thinking I might not be on the show, and it's not as compelling audio as what you guys have done with some of the other brackets.
I think those first half dozen names, I think they were all going to be pretty damn obvious, and I think after that, where it might have got a little interesting, and that's where we'll just let you guys speak, and if we've got anything to say, we'll add into it.
So I've got Tanahashi, Ospreay, Okada, Shibata, White,
Ibushi.
Okada,
Ibushi. Yeah, I've got Okada, Ibushi,
Got Naito.
Now, Jeremy, do you disagree with any of them?
No, I mean, I think those are all locks.
Right. So
Here's the thing. I took my list to Jeremy, and I was like, it did get hard at the end, kind of narrowing a couple of them down, but we kind of narrow them down together. So I doubt we're gonna fight too much about any of these. I mean, the only thing that would have made this list hard was if we were still including people that aren't in New Japan anymore, like your Prince Devitt's, like your Kenny Omegas, like Nakamura. But because those guys are gone and it's literally limited to just the people currently in the company, it makes it a lot easier, honestly.
Yeah.
that's fair enough.
The other big difference I've noticed with our list versus some of the other lists that you guys have, because New Japan is such an in-ring centric product, yes, the guys we're picking are based off their accolades and stuff, but it's mainly just based off how good they've been over the past decade in the ring. So it's really, I mean, this is a pretty definitive list. It's going to be really hard for you to convince me any of these guys don't deserve to be on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I already have an idea of what the final 4 is going to look like, providing they avoid each other in each round. And I think I say that early on that
it's going to be CM Punk against Okada.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, and I think Josh may agree with me here, that every single matchup that Brock Lesnar is in, I'm going to find myself kind of rooting for Brock and being like, no, let's take a step back. We hate him, but let's look what he's done, etc., etc. And I can't believe I'm going to be a fanboy for Brock.
I'm always a fanboy for Brock Lesnar. He's my dream opponent for literally almost everybody.
So are the brackets going to be split up? Are they starting out in their own region first and working their way out, or it's going to be completely randomized?
I don't even know if we've figured that out. But
you'd said you were going to use a randomizer on your.
The problem with that, round 1 can give you Okada versus Omega. You're like, oh, good.
Oh, yes.
That's what happens. If that's what happens, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That'll be an entire podcast dedicated just to that matchup.
This could be a 10-part series.
You could do it the real March Madness way and rate, give them their rankings and then do 1 against 16 and all that. But I like the chaos. Do the
chaos.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be when Ricky can do the randomizer, and I'll just be biased all the way through it.
I did one of these in my own spare time. This is how nerdy I am. One time I did a whole entire bracket with all the WWF World Champions, and my final was Andre the Giant against Bill Goldberg. Because they beat everybody. It's pretty simple.
That's must see. Right, so who else have we got then that you're both comfortable with?
Well, Hiromu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Liger.
Now that we gotta speak to that for a second. A lot of people are probably like, Liger, he just retired, but like, you look at Liger over the past decade. No, he wasn't in his prime, but like, find me a more compelling, more consistent junior, figure in New Japan. I mean, the guy was in his like late 40s and 50s and rattling off 4-star matches every year throughout the decade. Now, he wasn't having 5-star matches like a lot of other juniors, but he's just the best ever. He's the best junior heavyweight ever, and he was still like last year he was still having bangers.
Yeah,
it was crazy
and just so well traveled. I mean, the guy, he matches in Ring of Honor, NXT, Europe, Mexico, literally all over the place. Like Liger's
and all over Japan too.
Yeah, he's wrestled in other promotions in Japan. Like literally, like probably one of the most traveled guys in the promotion, wrestling a wide variety and having great matches all across the world.
Yeah, Liger's the fucking man.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't WWE address his retirement? And it's not like they do that for anyone out with, like, their own company.
Right.
Yeah, he's the man. So we got Liger on there. Do you need more time?
It's okay. It's only 5 letters. I've got that.
Well, we got Katsuyori Shibata.
Yep. Got. Is that the head injury Shibata? Yes, or is there a different one?
Yeah.
Right. I've got him.
Awesome. Well, ZSJ.
Zack Sabre Jr.
I'll happily just listen to him talk about Boris Johnson all day, to be honest with you.
And when we did this list, I wasn't really taking into account at all what these guys had done outside, but listening to the other podcasts you guys done, it seems like based on the fact that a lot of people are well-traveled, you guys are kind of taking some of that into account. When you look at Zack Sabre, PWG champion, Evolve champion, Rev Pro champion, finalist in the Cruiserweight Classic, New Japan Cup winner.
Oh, he's had a really, really good career.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and his run in New Japan's been really good, coming in that New Japan Cup, beating, Tanahashi, Naito, Sonata, all these aces to win the New Japan Cup.
Give me a big name he hasn't beaten.
Yeah, he's pretty much beaten them all.
I think Jay White's the only guy he hasn't beat. He's beat Okada. He's beat Tanahashi.
Sonata.
He never got to beat Omega. But he's beat everybody.
He beat Ibushi.
Yeah, many times. And that's the other thing. He's beaten a lot of these guys multiple times. That's the other crazy thing. So
right.
He's a fucking man.
Who's next?
Yuji Nagata.
Yeah, Yuji Nagata from WCW.
From WCW. Yeah, even just this past year, he had one of the craziest feuds I'd seen all year against Minoru Suzuki, and he's in his 50s and he still can just go. And I mean, he's done a lot this decade. I mean, his feuds with Shibata, his feud with Tanahashi. I mean, he still held the IWGP championship in this decade. So absolutely, Nagata was the last ace before Tanahashi.
Yeah,
company.
And I don't think Nagata gets the credit he deserves because he was wrestling kind of during that dark age. He was wrestling during Inokiism. So, people don't really look back fondly on those dark ages time. People were really watching a lot of it. So people don't really know how great Nagata was and the great matches and feuds he was having and kind of being, carrying the company pretty much during that dark period until Tanahashi came around to really elevate it out of the dark ages.
Mm-hmm. And during his retirement G1, he was arguably the MVP of the G1 where he retired, and he lost every match except for the last one. He was going out there every night in his 50s, or I don't even know. He was probably in his late 40s, but maybe.
Well, because he's 52 right now.
So he's probably in his late 40s at the time.
Yeah.
And having over 4-star matches every single night with guys that were, 15, 20 years younger than him is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would I be able to pause it one?
Go for it.
Minoru Suzuki?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. The king. I mean, Suzuki's another guy, another 52-year-old guy storied career all throughout Japan, several runs in New Japan. Even if you look at his recent work, it's all stuff he's done with the Never title and leading Suzuki, wars with Ishii and Ibushi, recently Shingo, the big title matches with guys like Okada, feuds with Tanahashi. Suzuki is incredible.
Yeah, he's having one of the best years of his career right now. This is probably, historically speaking, I can't think of any 52-year-old wrestler that's ever been in contention for Wrestler of the Year, and he is literally an actual live contender for being the Wrestler of the Year this year. His work in Noah, when him and Suzuki-gun took their brief hiatus over to Noah, they popped business. He had incredible matches with guys down there. I don't think he's held the Triple Crown Championship this decade. He might have. Actually, he might have. But he definitely held the GHC World title this decade. Plus, he was the IC champ.
Never champ.
The Never champ. He's very decorated. It's Suzuki.
That's all. That's the reason enough. Ricky, have you got any you're thinking without cheating and looking at Joshua's list?
Tell me who we've got so far.
Okay. Tanahashi, Ospreay, Okada, Shibata, White, Ibushi, Naito, Takahashi, Liger, Sabre, Yuji Nagata, and Minoru Suzuki.
Took the good ones.
There's one I can think of.
I can think of one that's not on there that Ricky's going to be kicking himself if he doesn't say.
Sanada?
You can throw him on there, but there's someone. Think back to the G1 that you watched. And your favorite Mox match.
Yep. Come on, Ricky. It's not even quiz time.
That was last year. Fuck.
Can I just put you out of your misery?
Ishimori.
I thought he was going to say it. Ishii, bro.
Ishii.
Oh, yes.
Don't Pitbull.
Even I knew that one, Ricky.
Listen, it's like the quiz when I get put on the spot. I don't remember anything.
So,
Rich is going to listen to this and he's going to be screaming it down his bloody headphones.
He'll just be screaming. He'll be screaming because Jay White's in the list.
To give you credit, you actually said Ishii earlier when we were running down the names, but we just said them too fast for Clive to get them all listed.
See, I was nice and relaxed at that point. Thankfully, I'm doing the quiz tonight. I'm not involved in it.
And we've got the reigning R&C champ as well.
Wait, am I getting a title match?
Defending his crown in a triple threat.
Nobody said that. That's
Well, if Josh wishes to defend the crown tonight, then
I feel like it should be a title match.
Why are you guys trying to work me into an angle right now?
This is some Vince McMahon booking right here. Rewriting the book at 7:30 p.m.
But obviously Ishii's got to be on there.
Right.
Yeah. We could list his accolades, but here's the thing about him. Maybe the greatest wrestler of the decade. And that's not hyperbole. And he doesn't get the credit for it. And it's true. He might literally be the best wrestler in New Japan or in the world. And it's been that way for 7 years now.
Yeah, guy's incredible.
And Ricky can't remember him. But just
to be fair to Ricky, he did say his name earlier on. And assumed you'd wrote his name down.
Plus, you're not the only one who buckles under pressure, because I'm pretty sure a certain young boy was pretty bad with the theme tunes last time he was on.
Oh, yeah. Remember when we heard the coin drop and I was like, Naito.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Right, so
I don't be listening to themes. I'd just be watching the graps.
We've got 8 left. It's starting to get to the whittling down stage.
Well, I think another name we can throw out there is Dragon Lee / Ryu Lee.
Easily.
Okay.
You know, one of the top guys they brought in from Mexico from their CMLL relationship, a guy who's had a feud with Hiromu that's kind of been seen in CMLL, New Japan, Ring of Honor. They've kind of taken this feud all over the place. Just one of the top performers, best Super Juniors. Pretty much anytime they bring him in, he's having excellent matches. Definitely been a standout in the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
Did Ryu Lee win the junior title?
He did.
Yeah, so, I mean, he was even junior champion. I mean, you look at his matches with Ishimori. Obviously, literally his legendary feud with Hiromu is like Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask level across 3 continents in multiple companies. Not only just those matches, but like matches with guys like Kushida, Marty Scurll. I mean, yeah, Dragon Lee's the man. Like one of the biggest regrets this year was that COVID kept him out of the country.
Right.
But yeah. And then if you factor in the work he's done in Ring of Honor as well as CMLL, which are sister promotions to New Japan, and factored into the kayfabe of the company, I mean, yeah, he's a slam dunk.
Okay, doke. Any more slam dunks?
Goto.
Okay. G-O-T. Right, we're down to 1. There's 6 left. And then we've got the full 64.
Another name to throw out there, Ryusuke Taguchi.
How do you spell that one?
So last name Taguchi is T-A-G-U-C-H-I.
Okay. I'll correct the spelling and stuff after the fact. Because I'm sure I'll have got a few of these wrong.
I'm looking forward to seeing who Jeremy wants to slide in at the end.
Yeah, I don't know who it is either. I feel like it's ELP and it's going to make me mad.
No, it's not it's not ELP.
I'm going to throw a name on there that's super unexpected. But if you've watched this company for the past decade, you won't be that surprised. Tomoaki Hanma.
Hanma, right.
And he returned post-injury, and he's literally like never been the same after his injury. The fact that he's wrestling's a miracle. But before his injury, he was the hottest guy in the company. He was literally New Japan's Daniel Bryan, like the underdog of all underdogs in the company.
That's high praise.
Just have some great matches.
That's high praise indeed. Jeremy, have you got any more before your secret weapon?
So I know Ricky threw out Sonata. I think that's somebody that can be on there.
I would agree.
Okay.
I don't feel as strong. Sonata was the last guy I listed on my list because I don't feel as strong about him. He's kind of squeaks in, but I would agree, generally speaking, because you look at how many great G1 matches he's had, it's kind of hard to deny him, plus his runs through New Japan Cups. But and then you look at Tag League too, and like, yeah, he does deserve to be on there.
Okay.
Shingo Takagi.
Yep.
Shingo.
The Dragon.
Now, he hasn't been in the company quite as long as many of these other names. He's only, coming up on 2 years, I guess?
Yeah.
But in those 2 years, one of the best people in the company, one of the biggest, fastest rising stars, match of the year last year. And then if you did couple in the work he did in Dragon Gate, where he was the big bad boss for so many years there, plus the work he did on the indies in the early part of the decade, plus his run in PWG last year, plus his run through the Champions Carnival 2 years ago. I mean, Shingo's an all-timer.
Yeah, I mean, hands down, yeah, Shingo's got to be on there.
Okay, doke. Now, obviously, you're going to have Evil on, right? That's a given.
Evil will not be on this list.
The worst
Everything
64,
is not
perhaps?
evil.
2 left, gentlemen.
Say
Only
no.
2 spots left?
Mm-hmm.
So one name, Taiji Ishimori, the Bone Soldier.
Absolutely.
So we're down to Jeremy's sliding someone in.
All right. So
Look
the
at the
one
the
guy.
smile on his
Okay,
face.
what about, before Jeremy gives a name, but I know this one will probably be shot down, what about Tai Chi?
That's a pretty good name. And that's someone we actually considered when we thought we only had 20 names listed.
Yeah, Taichi's definitely a guy you can consider, especially with his kind of elevation through the ranks of Suzuki-gun and starting off as a junior, going into heavyweight, winning the Never title, and right now he's kind of at its peak, having some really great matches.
But he's also had – it's hard with him because he's had so many bad matches. And it's not because he couldn't go. It's because he chose to actively wrestle poorly as part of his gimmick for so many years. I do find it really hard to like include him. Like he's had 2 or 3 great years, but he had like 7 horrible years with like an occasional banger once a year. It was terrible.
That's quite weird against him.
That's a great gimmick. I'm going to come out, get paid, and just wrestle like shit.
So I'm waiting for Jeremy to throw his out there because I'm actually looking through the roster myself just to be like, who is he going to say? Oh, I know who he's going to say. and I'm going to shoot it down because he can't get in, honestly. But go ahead, Jeremy. I know who you're going to say now.
So the one name that I'm trying to slide in here is my man, the leader of the Bread Club, Satoshi Kojima.
No.
This man was the IWGP champion
in 2010.
Right. At the beginning of
2010.
The beginning of the decade, had a great rivalry with Tanahashi.
No, in 2010, and then that was it for him. That's it.
This man was a part of the great team of Tenkoji.
They were done.
This man was still having great matches. This man had a great match with Shingo last year.
This is so weak. So weak.
Well,
this man was challenging for the NWA title against Rob Conway, Wrestle Kingdom 8.
That sounds amazing.
Oh my God.
That sounds like a random match generator on a computer game.
No, I'm sorry. I love the guy, but if we're going strictly off the past decade, like, do I think he's a Hall of Famer? I absolutely do, but not based off the 2010s. Like, this guy cannot. No, absolutely not.
Dissension within the ranks here.
I'll tell you the one name I would like probably throw out there, because if we're gonna include one last name, it's probably Rocky Romero. Either that or Juice Robinson.
Now, have you had Kojima on your podcast before?
No.
He speaks Japanese.
Does that not answer your question then? Because you've had Romero on.
That's true. Rocky's been on the Ace podcast. Rocky has been in the DMs.
Here's the thing with Rocky. Rocky's had the majority of his run is based off of his work in tag teams, but they were fantastic tag teams, and he's like held gold for so long during
one of the best junior tag team wrestlers between his team with Trent Beretta as Roppongi Vice.
I sorry to cut you off. I know that could be kind of cheating, but is that a name you would consider, Trent Beretta?
Well,
I know he's signed with AEW, but
I would not consider him.
Yeah.
But you guys told us they had to be in the company.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'd be grabbing Kenny Omega. I'd be grabbing.
Oh yeah, I know.
Nakamura.
I'd be grabbing Kushida, because I'm sure he's not on your guys' list, and he probably needs to be on this list.
He's not. I was actually thinking about that about 15 minutes ago.
Ricochet. But the other name I could probably throw in there, aside from Rocky Romero, personally speaking, is Juice Robinson. Although it's an inconsistent thing. Like,
I would.
He has high highs, and then he also has some mediocre lows.
I would rather take Rocky over Juice. I think Rocky's had a great decade. You look at the stuff with Trent, Roppongi Vice, Forever Hooligans, Mega Coaches. Trying to think, there's one.
Even like last year's run through the Super Juniors.
Right, yeah, that was great.
He like proved that he can still go as a singles guy on that level, and even this year, his singles run in America, like Rocky is really fantastic. I would throw Rocky Romero in there.
Yeah.
Well, if you both are happy with that, then I'll put Romero in, and we now have the 64 names. If you want me to run through them all,
he's been involved in talking Shopomania as well.
Right, so we've got the 64 names. I'll very quickly run through them, and then over the next few weeks, Ricky and I will devise a plan for getting these recorded, how we're going to do it and all that stuff. So, according to a panel of experts, the 64 best wrestlers or groups in the world today are Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Nakajima replacing AJ Lee, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Asuka, the Usos, New Day, CM Punk, Brock Lesnar, Finn Balor, Paige, Kevin Owens, Ciampa, Gargano, Cole, Nakamura, John Cena, Io Shirai, Jericho, John Moxley, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Nick Aldis, Matt Hardy, Tessa Blanchard, Gail Kim, FTR, Pentagon, Zero Dark 30, Rush, Chris Hero, Austin Aries, Miko Satomura, Kairi Sane, Mayu Iwatani, Chris Daniels, Jay Lethal, something Takahashi, Nene, was it? Nene. Tanahashi, Osprey, Okada, Shibata, White, Ibushi, Naito, Takahashi, Liger, Zack Sabre Jr., Nagata, Suzuki, Ishii, Dragon Lee, Goto, Taguchi, Honma, Sanada, Takagi, Ishimori, and Rocky Romero. Another RR alliteration wrestler. There's so many of them out there.
You guys don't have Io Shirai on there?
Yep.
I thought we did.
We do.
Oh, okay.
He said Io.
She's there just before Jericho.
And Matt Riddle's not on there, and Ricochet? That's crazy.
I guess the issue, I suppose, with Ricochet would be that dude's been irrelevant for the last, 3 years?
There is recency bias there.
Is it? But it's really only 1 to 2 years. And if you look at the whole decade, there's no fucking way. There's no way. It is tough. You know what? It is tough because I think and obviously this is just a fun thing that you guys are doing, and I think it's awesome. But it's tough because there's some guys that made the majority of their name on the indies that are now in WWE. And when you're doing the best guys in WWE, how much of that outside stuff factors into it.
Right.
And then vice versa. There's some guys that are on the indies now that were in WWE. So it is difficult.
Yeah.
But Matt Riddle fucking ruled the indies for 3 or 4 years. And Ricochet ruled the world before he got to New Japan or before he got to WWE.
I mean, I never thought of Riddle because I also didn't want to put Tessa Blanchard on because she's a fucking piece of shit.
Well, I wouldn't put Tessa in there because I don't think she's as good as everyone thinks she is.
I didn't want her. I was outvoted that day.
But this is going to be awesome. So what are you guys going to do? So, once you randomize it...
We were hoping you could help us, tell us how to do it. We'll need 3 people.
I thought are you guys going to just, put it to a vote? Is it... I think you should do it like a shoot. Who would win the fight? So it'll be Io Shirai against Brock Lesnar. Who wins this fight?
I don't really know. I suppose there would be a bit of kayfabe in there, but at the same time, I think you would factor in quality of matches, kind of how long they've been doing it. So if you're looking at someone say CM Punk, who's only wrestled the first few years of the decade, up against someone who, let's just say Seth Rollins, for instance. You might say Punk. So you could argue that Punk's peak was higher, but Seth's been doing it long, whatever. Factor in titles and stuff, and then factor in just, I guess, your own bias in the sense that, this guy's by far a better wrestler than this person, kind of thing.
The idea was inspired by the New Day had done a March Madness of action films or movies or TV shows or something over a couple of episodes. So it was just 3 people, so Ricky and myself, and then someone else to make it a deciding vote. Work it that way. We don't know if we'll have the same person as the outsider.
No, I would like, if we done it over like 3 or 4 episodes, you would get, I think, a different person for each show, if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, when you guys said Seth Rollins, CM Punk, I just went eyeball test for me personally. I was like, Punk beats him, like obviously. But then Ricky started talking, and I was like, oh, that's actually a pretty compelling argument. Maybe Seth Rollins does have this shit. So I think you guys are gonna have really good audio.
Yeah.
When you have these matchups, and I think you guys should. If I'm voting, I say randomize it.
Yeah, I'll randomize it.
That way we can end up with like,
Make it
Miko Satomura against Tomohiro Ishii.
It could happen. It could.
That would be raw.
Yeah, I mean, you know how good that match. I don't even like intergender wrestling, but I bet you like that'd be a 5-star match. I would spend so much money to see that match.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
I'd quite like
so
to see.
I'll need to populate this into the spreadsheet.
Walter's not in this shit.
Oh yeah, no Walter.
How the fuck?
I thought we did.
You know what's the hard part though?
I don't even think we factored NXT UK into it.
And you guys are from the UK.
No Tyler Bate.
Yeah, fucking we hate NXT UK.
NXT UK is dead to us.
I was forced to watch that match the other week, Walter and Dragunov, because Josh messaged. I'm like, shit, I need to fucking watch this now.
See,
and it's like one of the best matches you ever seen in your life, right?
Oh, fucking hell.
If we did this last year, I would have just been saying Joe Coffey for every round, but now his name just doesn't exist. He is redacted.
To the point, a funny story, like now you mentioned him and we mentioned John Cena earlier on. My 6-year-old has started watching a bit of wrestling. So I got him these wrestling cards and he got Joe Coffey in it, and he was asking like, he's a good guy, is he a bad guy? And I was like, good, bad. Got to Joe Coffey and I was like, you can put that in the bin. And he looked at me and he goes, why? And he was like, he's not nice. He's a very, very bad person. He's like, oh, but is he a good person in real life? Like, no. I mean, he's a bad person in real life. Put him in the bin. So then it gets to John Cena and it says, and this is where I wish I was this ignorant about wrestling again. On Cena's card it says never give up. So he looks at it and goes, John Cena, never give up. So does that mean, you know how you do, like, because I do wrestling moves to them, so I'll put them in like an ankle lock and I'll put them in like a sleeper hold. And he's like, so when you put me in, as he calls it, the leg lock, or you try to put me to sleep and you say I need to give up or I'm going to, otherwise I won't let go of the hold. So does that mean when he gets put in the ankle lock, he never gives up? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. But it got me thinking. I was like, he's never tapped out, has he?
No, he has. I can tell you all the time. Yeah. But they were all before his main event run. So he's tapped out to Kurt Angle. He's tapped out to Chris Benoit, and he's tapped out to The Undertaker.
Random one for him to tap out to.
Well, remember Undertaker was doing...
Was it Hell's Gate?
No, I think I'm pretty sure it was a triangle choke before he started using the Hell's Gate.
Right. It was when he was still American Badass, and they were doing that whole feud in like 02 or 03, whenever Cena was first on SmackDown.
That one might not even actually be a real match. It might have been like a segment leading to the match. I could be wrong on that one, but the first two for sure, he tapped out to Benoit and to Angle in real matches. The tough thing is for you guys with this thing, you could have literally done 64 spots, just done WWE, like the entire expansiveness, including NXT and UK, and you would have filled all your bracket because that's how much talent is literally there right now.
I think that would have been easier, but for me, also slightly more boring because for me at times it's a struggle to watch wrestling, but now for a number of these names for the next 2 or 3 weeks, you just kind of need to binge watch a lot of matches, especially from earlier on in the decade. And if it was just WWE only, I wouldn't have had to do that. So I guess it's kind of win-win. We get on with you guys with Rance is on, etc., and you get to go back and watch some of these matches you've not saw in a while or you probably haven't saw. So it's like doing a bit of research.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because when you guys were doing the episode on the Indies and AEW, most of the names from this decade are all there. Trevor Lee's there, Keith Lee's there, Walter's there, and so Matt Riddle, all of the guys in Undisputed Era, Ricochet, like Johnny Gargano, who isn't even in this thing, which is crazy. Like,
I thought they said Gargano.
Oh, did they? My bad. Okay, they said to me.
Better said Gargano.
But that's just the point I'm saying. Like, there's so many guys there that like someone was gonna get left out eventually.
The list is far from perfect. I will admit that. It's just.
Oh no, I love the list you guys have. I can't wait to see what happens.
Might just use a roll the dice to make it a D&D campaign and to see who goes through the rounds. But that's us. We'll get that sorted, Ricky, with some guidance from somewhere. The Lord above, I don't know. We'll see. Right, quiz time then.
Oh, we're doing this.
Yep.
Since you're here live and
before we get into the quiz, is the title on the line?
That's what I want to know. This man hasn't defended the belt in what, like 2 years? What's the ruling on the Ricky and Clive? We the committee?
I won the title last year.
I think if we are going to do a title defense, the next person up should be Rance.
How could
okay, fine.
We're doing a exhibition level quiz. This is not a full length quiz the way that the Quiztime quizzes have.
All I'm gonna say is if I win tonight, I should be in contention for the title.
I agree.
So it might need to come down to Rance and Jeremy have to face off in a number one contender match.
No, I'll let Rance get his rematch with Josh. That was the finals. He should get a rematch.
I mean, y'all want to do a triple threat? I don't give a fuck.
A three-way dance.
You don't even know the subject yet.
It might be New Japan entrance music. So you never know.
Guess who didn't know final subject? Rance. That's who didn't know the subject.
Oh man,
that's why he deserves a title shot, because that final question was just brutal from Ricky.
Yeah, let Rance get his one-on-one rematch title shot, and then if I win tonight, I will then challenge the winner of that match.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Caleb also wants a shot at the title.
Bro, 4-way. I don't give a fuck.
Oh, we should do elimination rules. That would be amazing.
Oh my god!
As soon as one person's out the quiz, we'd like drop them from the call, like be cutthroat.
Yo,
get the fuck out of here.
That's so mean.
No, we should though.
I know, but imagine Caleb was out first. So how fucking out here, and then
Caleb will not be out first. Have you seen him?
Fuck.
He fucks people up. I'm more worried about him than Jeremy or Rance. And like I only beat Jeremy barely. Like it was like 1 point I beat you by basically. Yeah. But like I have a feeling that Caleb's gonna come on here and Rain Man this shit and just like destroy everybody.
That's a fair comparison, really, but that's not fair. Right. Well, so. Jeremy's future contention is on the line tonight. So, Ricky, what's the subject?
Well, since I was watching BT Sports earlier and it popped up, and I was like, "Oh, that could be interesting."
World sport.
To
1970s, 1980s world of sport.
And I put it in air quotes to commemorate the Undertaker, quote unquote, retiring.
Yes.
It's an Undertaker-based quiz.
Okay.
Okay. I'm ready for this. I know my Undertaker.
Right, so we need buzzers. Clive, what was yours?
Bombaye.
Right.
That was Josh. Jeremy?
Let's see, what should my buzzer be?
Inoki. Bombaye. Inoki.
I'm trying to think. What should you know what? I'll go rest in peace for the Undertaker.
There we go. Someone done it.
And I'll say, this is my yard. No, no. I'll make you famous.
Ah, fuck.
I'm going to change mine to put some stank on it. Remember when Stone Cold tried to get that over for like 2 weeks and then he dropped it?
Okay, doke. Question number 1. In his debut match, which was at Survivor Series, who did the Undertaker eliminate?
Inoki Bombay.
Yep.
Dusty Rhodes.
Is that your final answer?
Do you want all the people or like
all the people Undertaker eliminated in that match?
Ooh, I don't know everybody. Dusty Rhodes. I think Coco Beware. And
Oh, that's it. You've got the 2 right. It was only 2 people.
okay, yeah. I didn't think there was more, but I was like, oh, you didn't say anything, so I was like, oh, I was right back there. I don't know.
So, question number 2. That's 2 points for Josh. Question number 2. The Undertaker beat who to win his first ever WWE / World Championship?
Oh, fuck's sake.
Yep.
Hulk Hogan.
That's not what I've got. I've written down that piece of shit, but
Right.
I guess it's Hulk Hogan, and Josh gets the point.
I was like, no, it's Hulk Hogan.
Question number 3. The Undertaker has only won one match via DQ at WrestleMania. Who was this again?
Oh, fuck's sake.
Giant Gonzalez at WrestleMania 9.
Correct. Jeremy, Clive, feel free to join this quiz.
Well, some of us don't have Tourette's, you know.
Question number 4. The Undertaker teamed with who at King of the Ring 2000, taking on Vince, Shane,
I
and
forgot my
Triple H?
I'll make you famous.
Go ahead.
I couldn't tell you who got there first.
It was Brian. I heard him.
Okay, it was Kane and The Rock.
Correct. Question number 5. In the build up to the Elimination Chamber at Armageddon, the Undertaker promised what?
I'll make you famous. And
Yes.
that's the answer.
Yes, that is the answer. To make someone famous.
There was a chamber match at Armageddon?
There was.
Was it 01?
Yeah.
No, the 6-way Hell in a Cell match.
Was
Oh,
it,
that's
sorry,
right,
that's it. Oh, sorry.
Oh my God. Rick.
Damn it, what is it on SL where Rikishi went through it?
Right. I was like, what?
Ah.
I thought he was talking about the one where
He was on fire.
HBK came from like through the floor and everything.
Right,
That's what I
yeah.
was talking about. All right.
Be better, Ricky. Question number 6. At the 2006 Royal Rumble, he returned and confronted who?
Inoki Bombay.
Yes.
It was Kane.
Nope.
I don't remember.
Is it at 06 Royal Rumble?
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Yep.
Was it Kurt Angle?
It was.
Correct.
Oh dang!
They came down in the chariot, didn't they?
Yep.
I was gonna say Mordecai.
It was after the Angle Mark Henry match,
That's right. They had
That's
that on after the Rumble match. That annoyed me.
True or false? The Undertaker once held the greatest title in wrestling history.
Inoki Bombay.
Yes,
It's true.
it's true. The hardcore title.
Yeah.
I thought people would have got that. Jeremy was thinking he never held the IWGP.
He was never NWA. It was Ricky asking. I knew exactly what it was.
Question number 8. How many single titles has he won during his WWE / WWF career?
Inoki Bombay.
Yes,
7.
that's incorrect.
Oof.
How many singles titles altogether?
Yep,
I'll make you famous. 8.
correct.
Dang.
Because the 7 then the hardcore.
7 versions of the world title, and of course,
The hardcore title.
True or false? fuck, I just gave the answer away. He has held the Intercontinental or the US title at least once. Yep.
False.
It's false.
Right, there we go.
That's a weird question to follow up with.
I know, I realised that once, especially after I fucking named the 8 titles that he'd won. So, right, classic Ricky, the final question is worth 5 points, so everyone can win. Go. And I need it in order.
Do we text it to you? Or just say it?
No, first person that buzzes in.
Okay.
Name his first 5 opponents of the streak.
Inoki Bombay.
Yep.
It has to be in order.
Yep, so from 1st to 5th.
Okay. The first one was Jimmy Superfly Snuka. The next one after that was Jake Roberts. That was WrestleMania 7, then 8. The next one was Giant Gonzalez. He didn't have an opponent at WrestleMania 10. The next one was King Kong Bundy, and then the next one was Diesel.
5 points for Josh, the reigning champion.
Oh.
Josh takes it, defends his crown.
Jimmy is devastated.
Listen, Jeremy,
I got mopped up, man.
Here's the thing about Jeremy. I barely beat Jeremy in the qualifying round. That was the toughest match of the entire tournament by.
So what that means is it's just going to be a singles match between Rance and Joshua unless we do this Fatal 4-Way elimination style quiz at some point soon.
I think the elimination one would be great, just purely because I'd love to kick someone off the call. But see more than anything, see if Rance, Jeremy or Josh go out first, then I don't want to kick them. I just want to kick Caleb off the call.
Do you know how angry whoever just gets kicked off the call would actually?
I know.
I love this idea. I think we should absolutely do it. I'm totally down for it.
Like, not even tell them that. Sorry, you have been eliminated, and then
and then they keep trying to call back in. They think something happened.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Oh, I'm so for it.
Well, gentlemen, thanks very much for coming on tonight. That ended up a long but very good conversation about all things wrestling. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
You want to plug your stuff?
Is this because you're afraid you're going to butcher it?
If Jeremy handles his half, I'll do the other part badly, but I'll still do it.
Like Clive mentioned, we host Keeping It Strong Style right here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, the 8th of podcasts. We cover New Japan Pro Wrestling. Find our show every Tuesday right here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. This week we were reviewing Power Struggle, previewing Best Super Juniors World Tag League. We had our friend Karen on the show, who's very fluent in Japanese and has a lot of great translations of Japanese promos and interviews and stuff like that. Follow her on Twitter at Hey Karen Sensei. You can follow the show on Twitter at KI Strong Style. And yeah, that's Keeping It Strong Style.
Other podcasts that are on the Social Suplex Podcast Network are One Nation Radio, Grown Men Watch This Shit, Great Match Generator, All Things Elite, Grave Consequences and 8-Bit Suplex. You can get those podcasts and columns that we do sent directly to your email inbox if you go to socialsuplex.com and press subscribe. On the show notes part of your podcasts on your phone, you'll see links to either donate to us or the Social Suplex Podcast Network as a whole. There's links to the t-shirts that we'd have at prowrestlingtees.net. Just type in Social Suplex at the shop, and that'll take you to the page. Wrestling Squared Circle. I was doing so well. I was doing so bloody well. Wrestling Squared Circle is the name of the Facebook group we're at, and we are at Ricky and Clive. Not forgetting, of course, at Social Suplex, where you can keep up to date with everything that goes on. I did cover everything there, didn't I? Yes.
You're great.
Yeah, I think you got it all.
Considering I had the pressure on with Bossman J here, I think I did not too bad, apart from the Facebook botch. Ricky, have you got anything you want to add?
Nothing, just it was nice talking to the guys, as it always is.
Yeah. I'd do it more often.
The real J&J security.
We appreciate you guys and the work you do here, and for having us on. And we can't wait to hear this 64-man bracket. It's gonna be awesome.
You won't be singing our praises when you're eliminated first from the quiz, Joshua.
I mean, that would be based off of my own performance, and so I know I'm gonna do good, so I'm not too worried about it.
Well,
do you know what? Let's just hope Caleb is the one eliminated first.
We can phone him up just now, just so you can hang up on him if you want.
Clearly, I need to brush up on my Undertaker, so hopefully that's not going to be the theme of the forum.
Oh.
Ricky, you haven't been in the group chat lately. I think you've missed the memo. Muzza's the new Caleb.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
That's him. He's wanting to come back in now to see what's going on.
He texts me at like 2:30 one morning. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing up? Caleb, and the thing, like, and we're still recording, but Caleb texts me like 4 a.m. to start a conversation. I'm like, Caleb, I know it's 10 o'clock over there, but it's 4 a.m. I'm sleeping. So then I'll text him in the morning, and then he texts again at stupid o'clock to continue this exact same conversation that's been going on for the last 2 or 3 days. Shout out to Caleb, great guy. I actually do love Caleb.
We've put Caleb over too much in the space of 10 seconds, so that'll do for tonight. Thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you all next week.
Good night.
Take care, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Podcast. We'll see you next time.